Hey everyone, Adios Amigo here, and I'm doing something kind of different. I'm changing things up because I've actually moved. So, this is going to be a review with a little bit more editing involved than my usual affair. But anyhow, we're talking about the Edifier G4 TE headset. It's a pretty interesting USB powered gaming headset. And this particular review is sort of brought to you by the Deatrimentis Alexander Hamilton Inc. Not sponsored by them. I just wrote this in it. So I do love this ink. It's a very interesting purple, but that is a side note. So anyhow, the headset. Closed back headsets or even just headphones under $100 are something of an odd beast. It's both feast and famine. If you look at a lot of the headsets that are available for gaming, from like Turtle Beach or Razer, HyperX, all of those companies, Corsair have closed back headsets, I should say. Even Koss isn't on that game now. So it's not to say that there isn't a lot of them, but there is a famine of quality made ones where the audio quality is good from the headphone portion of it, as well as the microphone portion of it. And we'll get into that too. So these are a USB powered headset. Like I said, they're RGB. So I'll throw in some video of it. But basically, this H and this ring light up in RGB, and it rotates. There might be a way to change it in the software. I honestly don't know. I'll get into that too. But the only way to control the LEDs is either to turn them on or off using this controller here. So out of the box, the build seems kind of plain, right? It's got a headband suspension here, which is actually not bad. It's pretty comfortable. I didn't even find the clamp all that bad on this, despite how kind of strong it looks. One of the things I'm not super happy with is there is like no adjustment left to right on these. It's just tension on the headband, and that's it. There's no adjustability left or right. There's no adjustability up and down. It is literally just this. So if you have a shape and you want to curve the pads in or curve the pads out, or it just needs a little bit of inclination, or you need to angle them up or down, you don't get that. All you get is headband out and closed, and that's it. It just so happens that these fit my head well, so they got lucky. But I'm not going to give them a pass just because my head happens to be, within some level of norm that they designed this headphone around. So that's number one. Number two is these pads. The pads are actually pretty decent out of the box. I didn't feel any overriding need to change them out right off the bat. And that's kind of saying something, right? They're not memory foam, but they're decently soft. And they are marked on the inside. There you go. I finally got the R on there. They're marked L and R on the inside, so it's easy to remember in case you forget the old rule that the cable should be under the left cup. So if you don't know that rule, they are marked, which is nice. There's a little slot here for the microphone, and there is a microphone control button on here and a level control on here, but not for the microphone, just for the headphones. So if you want to control the gain on the microphone, you're going to have to do that through Windows. Not my favorite, and there's also some weird default settings, which I'll go into. But yeah, so it's pretty plain. It's kind of a cheap plastic they use for the shell, but the headband and this metal piece that they're using up here for the tension and the strap are actually decent. And it's very loud outside because of the wind. I am sorry. But anyhow, so yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the plastic they use. I also don't generally like a super high polish or high gloss finish, but you know, it is what it is. Anyhow, so I picked this up refurbished from Woot for $46, I believe. I can probably drop a screenshot. Anyhow, I figured A, I can review them, and B, I can send them out as gifts if they're as good as I'd seen a very particular reviewer give them praise for. So let's get to the basics, really, right? So there's a couple things that are important. We've talked about comfort generally already. We've talked about the build quality, and the thing that kind of, I shouldn't say kind of, one of the important things, the really important things is sound quality. And a high quality of sound for a headset, especially a gaming headset, quote unquote, it's kind of rare, right? But you don't see that very often. A lot of headphone designs tend to chase sort of a Beats, A, sound design, B, build quality, and this is kind of going the build quality route. And if not that, they also kind of just feel like they're RGB lights that happen to have headphone drivers stapled to the side of them. And the headphone is itself sort of an afterthought to the aesthetic of the product itself. That's really not the case with this, as far as I can tell. So the Edifier kind of finds itself in rarefied company because it does offer really high value, both in terms of sound quality and comfort. If so long as your head fits these, it is comfortable. And I haven't seen any particular problems with this build quality yet, so I can't say that, but I've also only had it for about a week. So you might want to do some long-term research on that to see what the build quality is going to be like, but I haven't had any problems with mine. So let's get into the basics. USB powered, what does that mean? A, it means that you need to have some kind of digital device to drive these, probably either a gaming console or more probably a PC. If you have all analog equipment, right? If you have an analog amplifier or an analog source, this isn't going to work. If you have like a bunch of vintage equipment from the 70s that you're hoping to get a headphone for, it's not going to be this. You're going to have to look for another headphone to kind of satisfy those needs, which we'll talk about later. So this is really meant for digital use, obviously, and that also comes with some benefits, right? You don't need a DAC, you don't need an amp, it's all built into the headphone. It's handling all of that for you, which is good. You don't have to lay out extra expenditure on like a shit stack or, one of the all-in-ones from FiO. Even one of the more affordable ones, like the E10K, you don't have to worry about any of that. You're fine. You can just plug this into your computer, and you're already hitting your peak performance. You're there. You're done. So that's one note, which may be good or bad depending on what your use case is for this. The second thing is that, like I was saying, you don't really have a lot of control over the mic, right? Because this is all handled internally, and because the mic gain is going to be handled digitally through Windows, you don't actually have a separate amplifier for the mic to turn it up in case it's too quiet. For whatever reason, your recording device isn't picking it up properly. You don't have the option to boost the signal somehow, right? Unless you overgain it, which is actually a problem with these. The second problem is that the drivers that come with this, for whatever reason, have very certain controls involved. They automatically default to automatic gain control, which is just labeled AGC in Windows sound devices. And it's kind of a problem because the automatic gain control is garbage on this. I'm going to have some voice recordings that I'll drop into this at the tail end so you can compare them. Basically did 3 separate versions of recording for this using the microphone. And one was using automatic gain control. One was using no automatic gain control, but full power from Windows mic input. And then the next one was no automatic gain control, and I tuned the levels, or it kind of cleaned up the signal a little bit. But I don't know that a lot of people who aren't familiar with using Windows sound devices are going to understand what they need to do to make the mic output sound better than I would expect. And it is possible on these. The mic output is surprisingly, shockingly good, considering you're also getting a really good headphone for $50. I'm shocked. Okay, I am actually shocked. So again, I'll put those at the end so you can listen yourself. So sound. The stage is kind of an interesting thing on these. It's somewhere between an intimate kind of venue, kind of smaller sized venue. It's larger than that, but it's smaller than like a normal concert hall. It's really hard to describe because these actually do a very good job of kind of layering the instruments out, getting the separation right. It makes it feel bigger, but when you actually listen to headphones with a large soundstage, it feels smaller than that. So it could just be like, it feels larger. That's the impression that you get because of how well it does other things. But I feel like the stage itself isn't that large. There are a few tracks that I listened to where I could kind of hear that it wasn't as deep as some other headphones. It wasn't as... Well, no, depth is really the big thing. These actually can go... No, they can't go that wide either. So, yeah, they're not as wide as some others. They're not as deep as some others. There's some give and takes going along. But I wouldn't say it's small either. It's probably just short of being right in the middle. And I mean just short of that. So the stage is at least acceptable. The way that it presents sound with whatever stage it has, it does it right, and it does it in a way where it doesn't distract you from enjoying what you're listening to or from other things like gaming, which I can get into later. The imaging is actually pretty solid, left to right, but there's a small section, right? Left to right, fine. There's a small section in the middle where it just feels like there's a little bit less there. I was listening to Thriller, and in the opening of that song, a wooden door opens and footsteps happen from right to left, crossing the kind of field of audio, if you will, from right to left. And it stops at about, I don't know, if right in front of you is 90 degrees, it stops about probably 25 degrees from the left. And it starts a little bit more to the right, closer to a 90 degree from the right. There's a section in the center where it kind of, normally, the footsteps, there's more of them to cover less distance in the center for some reason. It's just part of the way they recorded it. And then it takes one giant step towards the left for some reason or another. And in these, it actually spans that center area a lot faster. So it feels like there's less coverage in the center of the image that you're getting. Now, I didn't have that particular problem as much when I was gaming. The audio cues still felt fine. It's just felt like because there are certain recordings and certain songs where you really point out, very specific parts of the virtual image in your head, it just didn't work. I shouldn't say it doesn't work, but it falls short of some other offerings that you can possibly get as a competitive product. So it's not terrible. And for gaming, it's definitely doable. For music, it's actually still very fun. Like, you have to really sit there and listen for details before... It won't sound perfect. You'll know it won't sound perfect. but you won't know why until you actually have a song where you know exactly where everything is supposed to be. And then you go back and you listen to it, and it's just not there. And then you say, aha, but most people aren't going to do that. If you're just listening and enjoying, it's hardly going to be an issue. It's really unlikely to be an issue. So moving on from stage, imaging, bass. Bass is actually pretty fun on this. It's impactful. It's actually decently extended. It does start to distort a little bit towards the bottom end of the range. It is a little boosted, but not crazy. Not to the point where you have to feel like you have to pull it down. But the problem for me is it's a little loose. And when it's really hammering the bass repetitively, it can sound a little bloated. Again, you kind of have to have a track that really hammers that home. And for a $50 headphone, I still think it sounds fantastic. It's the problems with the bass are not enough to make me not enjoy what I'm listening to. It's just enough where I can listen to it and say, oh, there's something 4 times the price that does it better. That's all I'm saying. Okay. I'm just looking at it objectively. I'm not trying to wear rose-colored glasses when I'm talking about it. I'm just saying, I've listened to other stuff that's better. This is loose in comparison. It's also only $50. We'll get to the the value spread later, but I'm just giving the objective opinions right now. Next, mid-range, clear, forward. It might have a dip somewhere in the mids because for some songs, it feels like there is a slight recess for female vocals. Male vocals don't have this problem. And for songs where the female vocals are kind of higher, not that bad. It's generally for lower frequency female vocals. It's minor. It's not distracting. Again, this is just a personal thing. I tend to like vocal forward headphones. So for me, this in particular was very noticeable. That's just my preference for tonal balance, though, and the way that the sound is layered. I like forward vocals. Not everyone's like that, and it's not to say that it's doing anything wrong. I just noticed it because that's how I prefer my headphones. So, treble. Clear, forward, energetic. A little too boosted in some things. More so a problem in music than video games. I had the DT990s, which I used for video gaming. I used them as a headset for my PlayStation. I remember in particular, I was playing Destiny with my DT990s. And I was using a burst fire weapon. And I just remember thinking, God, shooting my gun makes my ears hurt. I don't have that problem with this. In some songs, actually I shouldn't say that, in whole genres of music, really, it can be a bit much. I listen to a lot of ska. I listen to some big band. I listen to classical. Brass is very, very, very bright and hot. It got to the point where I actually did have to take these off because it was so fatiguing. Other types of music, I did not have that problem at all. I could listen to pop. I can listen to electronic. When there's a large distance from the vocals, when the space is a lot larger for some of the songs, the way that they're mastered, it's not a problem. The issue is when you have usually like a rock style recording, right? They want that energy. They want you to get kind of up and moving, right? That's the whole plan. This was borderline painful. And I don't want that to detract from people. I'm actually a little sensitive to treble. So that doesn't entirely surprise me. And here's the interesting thing, okay? I have the Audio-Technica 8700Xs that I've been kind of listening to, trying to get an impression of, because I planned on doing a review for them. And it's a night and day difference. The 8700, very similar to these in that the treble is very boosted compared to the rest of the tonal balance, right? These are kind of like a V curve. The 8700s are really just a line up in the treble. But here's the thing, is the 8700s don't even have that great of a treble. I think it's grainy. I think it's shouty. I think it's overly harsh. And the treble that they are forcing into my ears is just not pleasant. These are clear. They do not have the grain that the 8700s have. They do not have this sort of compressed sound that I feel like the 8700 has. It's a weird kind of, I don't know, it might just be the grain that's giving me the impression, but there's a lot of kind of fuzz that I hear. It's very veiled almost, despite the fact that it's overboosted. It's a weird sensation. I'm not a fan. It's not clear. This is clear. And it's done in a way where, yes, I do find it fatiguing, but at least it still sounds good. I don't have that complaint with these. Is it boosted? Yes. Too much so in some songs. Still enjoyable, though. Still enjoyable. I could learn to live with it. I wouldn't just toss them off my head and move on to the next thing. So, yes, the treble's a lot. In games, again, I didn't notice it. I've probably spent about, oh gosh, I think I spent about 10 hours in Battlefront 2 and probably about 14 hours in World War Z wearing these, along with, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 hours in Iron Harvest. Did not have the problem. Gunshots did not give me this problem that the 8700s give me. I never felt like it was bad or I was forcing myself to listen to them. I enjoyed myself. They were engaging all the way through. The tonal balance, they were engaging. I enjoyed it. It was a little hot sometimes, but never enough where I thought, I'm going to have to force myself to listen to these just to get the review done. Never had that problem. I can't say that for the 8700s. So like I said, it's a V curve. You have to be okay with that. You have to be okay with the V curve. You have to be okay with a lot of forward treble. You have to be okay with a little bit of a boosted bass. If you're okay with those things for $50, this is a surprisingly good deal. Like I said, if you're digital, surprisingly good deal. So who's this really for? It really is for gamers, first of all. I'm going to say that right now. It really is for gamers. The headset works. Not just the headphones. The headset works. The microphone works. The microphone doesn't just work. I think it sounds better than a lot of standalone USB mics. I had the Blue Yeti, the original Blue Yeti. I like this more than the Blue Yeti. I had some cheap Dynex desktop mics. I like this microphone more. I don't know what they did. I don't know who makes it for them. It's good. It works. It's a good microphone. With some caveats. I personally found that with automatic gain control on, it boosts the signal way too much. Just too much. This is a prepared script to test the microphone and the audio interface. Currently, the sound is being recorded by the Edifier G4 TE. It's a USB device, so it's being used as both the microphone and audio interface. This section was recorded with the mic positioned directly in front of my mouth and automatic gain control on. When I turned automatic gain control off, it was boosted, but it didn't sound overdriven. I wasn't distorting nearly as much while recording. This is a prepared script to test the microphone and audio interface. Currently, the sound is being recorded by the Edifier G4 TE, which is a USB headset, so it's used both as the microphone and the audio interface through Audacity. This section was recorded while speaking directly into the microphone, with the microphone positioned just in front of my mouth. This was recorded with automatic gain control off. When I turned automatic gain control off and lowered the level to about 70 of 100, it was a very clean signal. You still get pops. The plosives are still going to hurt, or not hurt, but they're not going to sound perfect, you know. But I don't expect that for a boom mic. I also don't expect the audio to be particularly clear, and it was surprisingly clear. It did not sound like a cheap USB headset. It sounded like a proper microphone, and I appreciate that. This is a prepared script to test the microphone and audio interface. Currently, the sound is being recorded by the Edifier G4 TE, which is a USB headset, so it's used both as the microphone and the audio interface through Audacity. This section was recorded while speaking directly into the microphone because it has a boom mic, which is positioned directly in front of my face. So, thank you, Edifier. You did not just put the effort into the headphone, you put the effort into the microphone. A lot of times when people get these headsets, sometimes the microphone isn't worth it, but the headphones kind of recover the value. Here it is additive value. Both things are good, especially for the price of the product. Thank you, Edifier. So it is, yes, meant for gamers. Also could be used for media consumption. If you're just plugging it into a laptop and watching streaming, you can do that. I watched a few episodes of Stargate with these, SG-1. I enjoyed the heck out of it. Watched some YouTube, enjoyed the heck out of it. I don't have a problem with that with this. Totally use it for media consumption. The bass is there, the treble is there, the vocals, in shows at least, don't sound too recessed. I found it an immersive experience. Very much appreciate that. If you're just listening to music and you don't need the mic, is it still worth the money? I think retail on these is close to $65. I paid $50 refurbished. Is it worth $65? For the whole package, yes. I'm very much on board with that, yes. Just for the headphones, possibly. Possibly. If the tonal balance is what you're looking for your music, it's what your taste is, yes, I say go for it. That way, this is part of the value equation. You can bypass getting an amp and a DAC, which can be, $65 on its own? So you're almost saving the cost of the headphone and components to go a different way. That's not true of everything, but for some of the options under $200, that's going to be true. If you're a value seeker and you just want something that'll take care of all of your tasks, but won't feel like you cheaped out, and kind of did yourself a disservice by buying cheap, these are great. They'll make you happy. I think they'll make you happy. If you're treble sensitive, I would avoid these. If you're bass sensitive, flip a coin. It might be too aggressive, it might not be, but I would lean towards not, probably. If you're a very mid-forward person like me, these are still surprisingly serviceable. I'm going to give you some competitive options, but still serviceable. So the pros of this really are the value to performance, the fact that you don't have to buy discrete components, and there's really no upgrades necessary. You don't have to buy pads to make it work. You don't have to buy, you can't really. There's no, okay, so there is no replaceable cable, right? It's fixed. So if you want to replace the cable with something else, you can, which also kind of makes sense because the control is built into the cable. So I don't know how you would make that work. And then the light died. All right, let's see if we can finish before that happens again. So you can't change the cable, but that's okay because it works. There's plenty of cable length here. I personally just chose not to unfurl it all. You don't need to, just whatever you need. Cons, software support. This is supposed to come with an app to help control some of it, there's an equalizer built into it. I don't know if you can control the RGB. Point is, I went to the website. The website's still active, but there is nothing there. The headphones aren't on the website. The reason there's an H on here instead of an E for Edifier, it's related to some esports gaming company called Hecate or Hecate or whatever the heck it's called. It's supposed to have the support, the software support there. It had nothing. There is no software support for me to download to use with these. So I didn't get to use the software suite that I think is supposed to also include the 7.1 virtual surround that they advertise on the box. So I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I use these stock, just straight window drivers, nothing else, and I still enjoyed it. So despite the fact that you don't get all of the features that they advertise, well, first of all, don't buy into it. 7.1 surround sound is malarkey, okay? There is no 7.1 when you have 2 channels, okay? There's no subwoofer. How are you getting 7.1? It's malarkey. Virtual surround, I have no problem with, okay? It's the 7.1. The 7.1 is malarkey. I will forever bang on that drum. There's no 7.1 for 2 channels. Moving on. So you're losing that feature if you can't access the software. And more importantly for me, you're losing access to the equalizer, because I would have liked to see what I could do by turning down the treble just a tad, turning up the mids just a tad, and turning down the bass just a tad. Small changes that I think would have made it more pleasurable for me. If I could have done that with the software, would have greatly increased the value of the headphones. I could not try that. So that's a negative. Again, the other part, it doesn't work with analog components. If you're working with an all analog chain, you're kind of out of luck. Okay? So really, what are the competitors? For $65 providing a complete headset, there's not a lot. Well, therethere's a lot that I would consider personally. Right? You have the costs, what is it, GMR 54X, 540 ISO, if you want closeback. I haven't personally heard them. There's a lot of plus and minuses I've heard about the build quality and the sound. It's up to you. If you want to roll those dice, that's fine. I've actually used these and I like them. Okay? Now, if you like closed back for your gaming, and if you want something a little bit more mid-forward, actually a lot more mid-forward, with a bigger sound stage, I highly, highly, highly recommend the Akg K361. It's more money, though. Granted, I did, again, get it open box on Amazon for about, I think it was around $75. I think retail, they go closer to 100. So you're talking about 30% more money. Without the microphone, is it worth it? In my opinion, my very biased opinion, yes, it is worth it because it's more to my taste tonally, and it is efficient enough to run off your computer, your device in general. If you don't have an amp and a DAC, that's okay. The AKG will run. It does not matter. You lose the headphone. So not a problem for me. I already have my own, or the microphone rather. You lose the microphone. You don't lose the don't lose the headphone. Okay, you lose the microphone. Is that a big deal for me? No. But if you want an all-in-one solution, it's not going to work for you, right? You're going to have to pay more for another microphone. There's also the Akg K361. Now, I've used the 361 for a bit. I have more experience with the 275. The 275, again, comes with... Actually, let me pull it out right. Okay. So you'll see the cups are relatively similar in size. Yeah. Unlike the Edifiers, these actually have rotating cups, which is kind of nice, but again, not too much. There's a little play vertically, but not much, not much. And these things fold. Neat. In case you need to store them. These do have removable cable, which you can replace, standard AKG connector. And these foam pads, again, soft. The material's supple. It's kind of like a fake leather, like these. Supple. When it's colder, it's a little too firm, but when it heats up on your head, it gets more comfortable over time. And in the warm days, it's not really an issue. Perfectly fine out of box. I don't feel the need to change these out. Would I like a little bit more extra cushioning? Sure, I would. But I don't feel the need to change them. It's not an overriding thing just to make them usable for me, okay? So I really like those AKGs. A lot of people like the K361, 371 designs a little bit more. The 361, I think, ends up at about $100. There's some good things about it. You can, actually with that one too, you could just staple, not literally staple, but you could adhere an antline mic to it if you wanted to. I don't really see a need to. I prefer desktop anyway. It's something you can do though, right? If you want. You have to pay extra though. That's like another $50. You're talking about doubling the price now of the Edifier. You see, it's kind of like a recurring theme. So the 361s, tonally, just not to me. The treble's a little too veiled for me. And I like warm too, but it was a bit much for me. The stage is fine for a closed back. It's not great. Those 275s are much more open though. They beat the pants off of these for stage, in my opinion, in imaging. The 361's acceptable. I actually prefer these. I think they sound clearer. I think the imaging's a little bit more precise. The stage is probably in the same realm. And then you could go like absolute minimum dollar investment required would be something like the Mono Price Retros, right? And I had those. I threw some Brainwaves XL pads on them. They were serviceable. They were fine. I didn't. The bass was very strong. I didn't find it painful. I didn't find it particularly great either. That's really the only thing they had going for them, in my opinion, was a strong bass. Nothing else was really wow. That's really good. The clarity on these wowed me. The presentation of the instruments wowed me. Now, the only thing under $100 that's done that to me, besides these, are those AKG 275s. I did not have that ooh, what's this kind of moment with the costs. I've got the, MPH30Is or whatever. They did not wow me. There's a few IEMs that did, which is really the only other option you have under $100. But the important thing that I'm trying to hit home here. Whoops. There goes the pen with the ink in it. The important thing I'm trying to hit home is that this ticks a lot of very important boxes, especially if you're starting from scratch. If you don't already have a ton of money invested in amplifiers and DACs, and you just want something that sounds good, right? You're not trying to crush class performance in closed backs. You don't want the biggest stage or the most bass or the sparkliest treble. You just want something that sounds good. And I don't mean good for money. I mean good. It sounds good. Not only does it sound good, it fits surprisingly comfortably. And the microphone will absolutely serve you for most of your needs. Certainly for Zoom calls or Skype, Discord. You could even probably get away with some light recording, if you needed to. It'd work. It's fine. That way you don't have to go out and buy like a $70 audio interface, a $70 mic, a $20 XLR cable. It just comes on your $65 headphones. There's a lot of things I think add up, right? A very competent microphone, very competent headphones, very low investment cost to get everything up and running at optimum level. It's not like Akg K712s or HD 800s where you're looking for the right pairing of amplifier to make the headphones sing like a chorus of angels, right? It's done for you. It's set. You got your one shot and you took it. That's it. You don't have to go looking. There's no holy grail chase here for components. I think that simplicity in of itself is worth something positive. Now, if you're the type of person that likes to tinker with the sound, maybe if the equalizer was here, maybe you could have done that with these, but these are not going to be what you want so long as that software is unavailable. And that's my review of the Edifier G4 TE. I think they're fine. Honestly, if someone is looking for a gaming headset, they need the mic, they need the headphones, and whatever source that they're driving it with has a USB connection that'll work with these. I'm all in. I say go for them, right? If they want to go into the wonderful world of like audiophilia and they want to vibe with the music, I might point them in a different direction. I might try and figure out what their tastes are, although this is a good way to start. It's a good way to find out what they like and don't like, and then tailor it from there, but they're still going to have a very competent headset in the meantime, right? Normally, you would want something more neutral. You would want something down the road, so you know where to go as a baseline. These aren't perfect for that, but they'll get the job done. I would rather have something like the DT880s for that, maybe the Sennheisers, like a 58X or a 560. Even the Hi-Fi Min HE400i probably would be better. But regardless, if you're looking for closed back gaming or digital audio set for someone who just wants to get started or isn't really looking for, that moment where they hear the chorus open up on Beethoven's Ninth and start crying. If you're not looking for that moment and you're just looking for something, let's say, where the vocals open up on a Nirvana song and you kind of get those chills down your spine, when the grunge hits and you hear the song and you hear the soul in the voice, you can hear that with this, right? There's no angelic chorus, but you'll feel the right tracks. You'll also hurt yourself with the right tracks, but we've already gone over that. I'm rambling. Point is, I like them. $65, yes. If you can get them cheaper, even better. Is it a good gift? Absolutely. As long as you're with digital, I'm fine. I highly recommend these. I think they are surprisingly high quality for both the microphone and the audio. Surprisingly high quality. All right, this has been Adios Amigo. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.